I should have known better than to lend anything to a stranger on Europa Station. But when Dr. Yuki Tanaka looked at me with those desperate eyes, her hands trembling as she held the data chip containing my life's work, I couldn't say no. She promised it would only be 3 days. 3 days to present my quantum encryption algorithm to her research team. 3 days to secure funding that would save both our careers. 3 days that turned into 6 months of silence and a mystery that would nearly cost me everything. My name is Dr. Adrian Cross, and I'm a cryptographer specializing in quantum communication systems. Not the most exciting job description at parties, but it pays well enough to afford a cramped apartment on Europa Station, humanity's largest colony orbiting Jupiter. The view of the gas giant fills half the sky, swirling storms the size of Earth visible through the reinforced windows. I'd been living here for 2 years when I met Yuki, working on algorithms that could theoretically allow faster-than-light communication. Theoretical being the key word, until she walked into my life. It was a Tuesday evening at the Oxygen Bar, the only decent establishment on level 47, where researchers and engineers gathered to forget about the recycled air and artificial gravity that never quite felt right. I was nursing a whiskey that cost half my weekly salary when she sat down next to me. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she had that look scientists get when they haven't slept in days, chasing some breakthrough that dances just beyond reach. We didn't speak at first. The bar was playing old Earth jazz, something from the 21st century that felt both nostalgic and alien. She ordered water, which told me everything I needed to know. She was broke. Europa Station charges for everything, including clean water beyond your basic ration. I don't usually talk to strangers. 2 years of isolation had made me comfortable with my own company, but something about her silence felt different from loneliness. It felt like purpose. "Rough day?" I finally asked, immediately regretting the cliché. She turned to me and I saw her eyes for the first time. Brown, almost black, with flecks of gold that caught the bar's dim lighting. "Rough year," she replied. Her accent carried traces of Tokyo, softened by years in space. "You're Adrian Cross, aren't you? The quantum guy." I should have been flattered that someone recognized me. Instead, I felt exposed. My work was supposed to be confidential, buried under layers of corporate security. "Depends who's asking. Someone who needs your help." She pulled out a tablet, glancing around the bar before showing me the screen. Equations scrolled past, elegant and complex. I recognized some of my own work embedded in the code, but she'd built something on top of it, something that shouldn't have been possible. "Where did you get this?" My voice came out sharper than intended. "I've been following your research for years, the papers you published before going dark for Meridian Corporation." She leaned closer, and I caught the scent of jasmine. Strange, considering perfume was a luxury few could afford out here. "You found something, didn't you? A way to actually transmit quantum data without decoherence." I had. It was locked away in Meridian's servers, protected by encryption I'd designed myself. The algorithm was worth billions, maybe trillions if it worked. And according to the equations on her tablet, she'd figured out the next step. "This is impossible," I whispered, staring at her work. "The quantum tunneling effect you're describing would require energy levels we can't generate. Not with conventional methods." Her fingers flew across the tablet, bringing up schematics that made my breath catch. "But what if we're not using conventional methods? What if we're using the natural quantum fluctuations in Jupiter's magnetic field?" I looked up at her, really looked. This woman wasn't just brilliant, she was reckless in the way only true visionaries are. "You'd need my algorithm to stabilize the transmission. Without it, you're just creating noise." "Exactly." She met my gaze without flinching. "Which is why I need to borrow it. Just for a few days. I have a presentation with the Colonial Science Foundation on Friday. If I can show them a working prototype, they'll fund full development. We split everything 50-50. Partners. Partners. The word hung between us like a promise and a threat. I'd been burned before by partnerships. My last collaborator had stolen 6 months of research and published it under his own name. That's why I'd gone corporate, buried myself in Meridian's hierarchy, where contracts and lawyers protected my work. "I don't even know you," I said, though part of me was already calculating the possibilities. If her theory was right, we weren't just talking about faster communication, We were talking about fundamentally changing how humanity expanded into space. My name is Yuki Tanaka. I have a doctorate in quantum physics from MIT, spent 5 years at CERN before the Mars incident bankrupted half the research institutions on Earth. I came to Europa Station 8 months ago with everything I owned in 2 bags and a head full of ideas nobody wants to fund because they're too radical. She paused, and I saw something vulnerable flicker across her features. I'm desperate, Adrian. This is my last shot. I should have asked more questions, should have done a background check, verified her credentials, set up proper contracts and legal protections, but something in her voice, in the naked honesty of her desperation, reminded me of myself 5 years ago, before the cynicism and corporate politics had worn away my idealism. 3 days, I said. You present on Friday, I want everything back by Monday. And we signed something, a basic partnership agreement. Her smile transformed her face, exhaustion melting into pure joy. Yes, absolutely yes. Thank you, Adrian. You won't regret this. But I did regret it, almost immediately. We met the next morning at my apartment. Europa Station apartments are basically glorified storage containers, but I'd managed to personalize mine with actual books, a luxury that cost more to ship from Earth than their weight in gold. Yuki arrived exactly on time, carrying a portable storage unit that looked military-grade. Your security is better than I expected, she said, watching me disable the 3 layers of encryption protecting my personal server. Meridian trained you well. Meridian taught me paranoia is just good sense. I pulled up my algorithm, the code I'd spent 3 years perfecting, strings of quantum variables that danced across the screen like a language only I could fully understand. This is the core. Everything else builds from here. She leaned over my shoulder, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her presence. It's beautiful. The elegance of the solution. I've never seen anything like it. Pride warmed my chest. I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to have someone truly appreciate my work. At Meridian, my algorithms were just products, tools to be exploited. The key is in the entanglement cascade. Most people try to force the quantum states, but if you work with their natural tendency toward decoherence, you create a stable tunnel through the noise. She finished my thought, her eyes bright with understanding. Adrian, do you realize what this means? We're not just talking about communication. With the right modifications, this could be the foundation for quantum computing that doesn't require absolute zero temperatures. We spent the next hour transferring the algorithm to her secured storage. I created a copy for her, encrypted with a time lock that would automatically delete after 7 days. Insurance, I told myself. Though looking back, I realize how naive that was. I'll take good care of it, Yuki promised as she prepared to leave. The presentation is at 10:00 hours Friday morning. Do you want to come? You should be there. This is your work too. I almost said yes, but something held me back. Maybe it was residual paranoia, or maybe some part of me already sensed something was wrong. I have a meeting with Meridian, but send me a message after. Let me know how it goes. She hesitated at the door, turning back. Adrian, I know this is strange, trusting someone you just met. But I promise you I'm not going to disappear. This partnership is real. Those were the last words I heard from her for 6 months. Friday came and went. No message. I told myself she was busy, caught up in the excitement of her presentation. By Saturday, concern had settled into my stomach like lead. I sent 3 messages to her personal comm. All went unanswered. By Sunday, I was pacing my apartment, running every worst-case scenario through my head. Monday morning, I went to the address she'd given me, level 32, a residential sector I'd never visited. The apartment was empty, not just vacant, but stripped. No furniture, no personal effects, no sign anyone had ever lived there. The building's AI informed me the lease had been terminated 4 days ago, 2 days before our meeting. That's when the real panic set in. I spent the next week trying to find her. Colonial Services had no record of a doctor. Yuki Tanaka, entering or leaving Europa Station in the past year. MIT confirmed they'd had a Yuki Tanaka graduate 15 years ago, but she died in a shuttle accident near Mars 7 years back. The woman I'd met, the woman I'd trusted with my life's work, was a ghost. Meridian found out about the breach 3 weeks later. I don't know how. Maybe they monitored my personal systems, despite the privacy laws. Maybe someone tipped them off. Either way, I came home to find 2 corporate security officers waiting in my apartment. "Dr. Cross," the taller one said, her voice flat with professional courtesy, "we need to discuss a serious breach of your employment contract." They knew everything. The meeting at the bar, the transfer of encrypted algorithms, even the naive 7-day deletion timer I'd set. What they didn't know was where Yuki had gone or who she really was. "How you understand the gravity of this situation?" the second officer said. He was shorter, with the kind of face that had seen too many interrogations. "The quantum encryption algorithm is proprietary Meridian technology. By sharing it with an outside party, you've violated approximately 17 clauses of your contract." "I didn't share it," I protested, knowing how weak it sounded. "I lent it for a legitimate research partnership." "To a woman who doesn't exist." The tall officer pulled up holographic displays, showing me everything I'd already discovered. The false identity, the fabricated credentials, the apartment rented under a shell corporation that dissolved the day she left. "Dr. Cross, you've been the victim of corporate espionage. The question now is whether you were complicit." I wasn't fired immediately. That would have been simpler. Instead, Meridian put me on administrative leave, which is corporate speak for professional limbo. I kept my salary, but lost all access to research facilities and active projects. My apartment became a prison where I spent 18 hours a day trying to trace someone who'd never existed. The worst part wasn't the professional humiliation or the looming legal consequences. It was the betrayal. I kept replaying our conversation, analyzing every word, every gesture. Had any of it been real? The desperation in her eyes? The excitement when she saw my algorithm? The promise of partnership? Or was I just another mark, too lonely and too eager to believe someone saw value in my work? Europa Station is small enough that rumors spread fast. Within a month, everyone knew. The quantum guy who got conned by a pretty face. I stopped going to the oxygen bar, stopped going anywhere that wasn't absolutely necessary. My world shrank to my apartment, and the endless searches through data networks that led nowhere. I should mention that Europa Station isn't just a research colony. It's also one of the most important communication hubs in the outer solar system. Everything going to the moons of Saturn or beyond routes through our relay systems, which means we have some of the most sophisticated tracking and monitoring technology in human space. I started using that technology in ways I probably shouldn't have. Meridian's administrative leave meant I still had some low-level access to station systems, not enough to do serious research, but enough to watch data traffic patterns. I told myself I was looking for anomalies, anything that might indicate where my algorithm had gone. What I found instead changed everything. 3 months after Yuki disappeared, I noticed something strange in the outgoing data transmissions. Regular pulses, every 72 hours, sending encrypted packets to an address in the Saturn system, specifically to Titan Station, Saturn's largest moon. The encryption was sophisticated, military-grade, but something about the pattern felt familiar. It took me 2 weeks to crack it, not because I'm particularly brilliant at code breaking, but because I knew the algorithm intimately, because I'd written it. Someone was using my quantum encryption to hide communication between Europa and Titan. The content of those messages was mundane. Supply requisitions, personnel transfers, maintenance schedules. Nothing that should require that level of security, which meant the real message was hidden deeper, in layers I couldn't access without better tools and more clearance than I currently possessed. I needed help. Real help. The kind that comes with its own risks. Jonas Park ran the closest thing Europa Station had to a black market. Not drugs or weapons, nothing that crude. Jonas dealt in information and access. Need someone's background checked without leaving a trail? Jonas could do it. Need to access restricted databases? Jonas knew people. Need to disappear for a while? Jonas had connections throughout the outer system. I'd never used his services before, but everyone knew where to find him. Level 19, in the old maintenance tunnels that had been converted into unofficial market space. The colonial government pretended not to know about it, and in return, Jonas made sure nothing too illegal happened under his watch. He was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with the kind of casual confidence that came from knowing too many secrets. His office, if you could call it that, was a converted storage bay filled with computer equipment that made my personal setup look like children's toys. "Dr. Cross," he said without looking up from his screens, "I wondered when you'd come see me. Coffee? It's real, not synthesized." The fact that he knew my name shouldn't have surprised me. "How much?" "For coffee? Nothing. For what you actually want. That depends on what you actually want." He finally looked at me, dark eyes assessing. "You want to know about the woman who stole your algorithm, and you want to know why encrypted messages are bouncing between here and Titan using your own code." I sat down heavily in the chair across from his desk. "You knew about the messages?" "I know about everything that happens on this station." He poured 2 cups of coffee from an actual ceramic pot. The smell was intoxicating. "Been watching those transmissions for months. Figured eventually someone would notice and come asking questions. Didn't expect it to be you." "Who's sending them?" Jonas smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That's the interesting part. The transmissions originate from Meridian Corporation's secure servers. Your employers, Dr. Cross. They're the ones using your stolen algorithm." The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. "That's impossible. Meridian is investigating the theft." "Are they?" Jonas pulled up holographic displays showing me transmission logs, timestamp data, authorization codes. "Or are they investigating you, making sure you don't realize what's really happening?" I stared at the evidence, my mind racing through implications. Yuki worked for Meridian. Yuki, or whatever her real name is, works for someone. Whether that's Meridian or someone Meridian is working for, that's what we need to find out. Jonas leaned back in his chair. "I did some digging after you got put on leave. The woman you met was real enough, just not the person she claimed to be. She's a specialist, Dr. Cross. Corporate espionage, but the sophisticated kind. She doesn't steal technology, she steals people." "What does that mean?" "It means everything she did was designed to isolate you, make you dependent on the hope of partnership, and then disappear, leaving you professionally ruined and legally vulnerable. Classic manipulation, but executed perfectly." He paused, studying my reaction. "The question is why? Why go through all that trouble for an algorithm Meridian already owned?" That question kept me awake for the next 3 nights. Jonas had given me access to some of his monitoring tools, and I spent every hour analyzing those encrypted transmissions. The more I looked, the more patterns emerged. The messages weren't random. They were coordinating something. Movement of personnel, scheduling of equipment maintenance, timing of supply shipments. All innocuous individually, but together they painted a picture of something being built. Something on Titan. I made my decision on a cold Thursday morning. Cold being relative, Europa Station maintained a comfortable 22 degrees, but I felt frozen from the inside out. I was going to Titan, not with permission or proper authorization. I was going to stow away on a cargo transport and find out what Meridian was hiding. It was a stupid plan, suicidal even. The journey from Europa to Titan took 3 weeks under standard propulsion. 3 weeks in a cargo hold with limited supplies and no guarantee I wouldn't be discovered. 3 weeks to either find answers or die trying. Jonas tried to talk me out of it. "How you understand if they catch you? This stops being corporate discipline and becomes actual criminal charges. Stowing away on interplanetary transport carries a minimum 5-year sentence. Then I won't get caught." I was packing a small bag, mostly protein bars and water purification tablets. "Can you get me on a transport or not?" He sighed, the sound of someone watching a friend make a terrible decision. "I can. Transport leaving Tuesday at 0600 hours. Cargo hold 3B will have a maintenance access panel left unsealed. But Adrian, this is crazy. Even if you make it to Titan, even if you find whatever Meridian is hiding, what then? You're one person going up against a mega corporation. Then I'll be one person who knows the truth." I met his eyes. "I need to do this, Jonas. Not just for my career or my reputation. Because if Meridian stole my algorithm, if they're using it for something that required this level of deception, then it's not just about quantum encryption anymore. It's bigger than that." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but you're taking a comm unit with you. Encrypted, untraceable. If things go wrong, you signal me, and I'll do what I can to help." "Why are you helping me?" Jonas smiled, genuine this time. "Because 12 years ago I was a researcher at Phobos Station. I discovered something the Mars Colonial Authority didn't want discovered. They buried it, buried me, and I've been living in shadows ever since. He handed me a small device, barely larger than a thumbnail. Someone should get to expose the truth. Might as well be you. Tuesday morning came too quickly. I left my apartment at 05:30, carrying only a small backpack. Everything I owned fit in that bag now. Funny how little mattered when you were running toward either salvation or destruction. The docking bay was busy with pre-dawn activity. Cargo transports didn't follow normal schedules, launching whenever loads were ready and weather conditions permitted. Weather being relative in space, but Jupiter's radiation belts could be unpredictable. I found cargo hold 3B easily enough. Jonas had been thorough. The maintenance panel was exactly where he'd said, slightly ajar. Just enough for someone to slip through if they were quick and didn't mind tight spaces. Inside, the cargo hold was a maze of shipping containers stacked 3 high. The air was cold, kept at near freezing to preserve certain goods. I found a space between 2 containers in the back corner, wedged my bag in, and settled in for the longest 3 weeks of my life. The launch was rougher than I expected. Even secured between containers, I felt every thruster burn, every course correction. My teeth rattled, and for several terrifying minutes, I thought the containers might shift and crush me. Then we cleared Europa's gravity well, and everything became eerily silent. Space travel is boring, that's what nobody tells you. 3 weeks of nothing but recycled air, protein bars that all tasted like cardboard, and the constant hum of the ship's engines. I slept in short bursts, never more than a few hours at a time. The cold was brutal. I'd brought thermal blankets, but they only did so much. I used the time to think, to plan, to rehearse what I'd say if I was discovered. More importantly, I used Jonas's tools to monitor the ship's systems. The transport was automated, only a 2-person crew for emergencies. They spent most of their time in the cockpit, rarely venturing into the cargo holds. On day 9, something changed. The ship's communication array activated, receiving a tight beam transmission from Titan. I couldn't decrypt the full message, but I caught fragments, enough to know it was about me. Subject has been isolated successfully. No indication of external contact. Recommend proceeding to Phase 2 upon arrival. Subject, they were talking about me, which meant they knew I was on the ship, had known from the beginning. This wasn't a stowaway escape. It was an invitation. A trap I'd walked into because I was too desperate for answers to see the obvious manipulation. I should have panicked, should have tried to turn back or signal for help, but a strange calm settled over me instead. If Meridian wanted me on Titan, if they'd orchestrated everything to get me there, then Titan was where I needed to be. Whatever they were hiding was important enough to destroy my career and manipulate me across millions of kilometers of space. I was going to find out why. The approach to Titan was beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. Saturn hung in the sky like a golden god, its rings sharp and clear against the black. Titan itself was wrapped in orange haze, its thick atmosphere hiding the surface. We descended through clouds of methane and nitrogen, the ship shuddering with atmospheric friction. Titan Station was smaller than Europa, built more for industrial purposes than research. The colony hugged the shore of Kraken Mare, one of Titan's methane seas. Through the ship's external cameras, I could see the liquid methane lapping against the station's foundation, an alien ocean under an alien sky. We docked at 0800 hours local time. I waited in my hiding spot, listening as the crew went through standard procedures, cargo manifest verification, atmospheric checks, security clearances. When they finally left the hold, I gave it another 30 minutes before moving. The maintenance panel led to a service corridor that ran the length of the station's docking level. Everything was labeled in Mandarin and English, typical for outer system colonies. I followed signs toward residential sectors, trying to look like I belonged there. That's when I saw her. Yuki stood at the end of the corridor, wearing a Meridian Corporation uniform. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, styled professionally. No more exhausted desperation. She radiated confidence and authority, and she was smiling. "Hello, Adrian," she said. "Welcome to Titan. We've been expecting you." I wanted to run, to turn around and flee back to the cargo hold, steal the transport, anything but face the woman who'd destroyed my life. But 2 security officers appeared behind me, cutting off that option. Please don't make this difficult, Yuki continued. We're not going to hurt you. We just need to talk. There's a lot you don't understand. I understand you're a liar. You stole my work. I borrowed it. She walked toward me slowly, hands visible and empty. Everything I told you was true, Adrian. About the quantum tunneling, about Jupiter's magnetic field, about the presentation. I just left out who I was working for. Meridian. Eventually. But first, I was working for someone else. Someone who wanted to know if your algorithm was as revolutionary as the rumors suggested. She stopped a few feet away. It was. More than we dared hope. Which is why you're here. Because we need you to see what we've built. They led me through Titan Station like a prisoner trying to look like a guest. The security officers stayed close, but didn't restrain me. Yuki walked beside me, keeping up a running commentary about the station's history and capabilities. As if we were on a tour instead of whatever this actually was. We descended, deep below the residential levels, past industrial zones where methane was processed and purified, down to sectors I hadn't known existed. The air grew warmer, humming with power. Massive cables ran along the walls, pulsing with energy. Finally, we entered a chamber that took my breath away. It was a laboratory, but on a scale I'd never imagined. The space was easily 200 meters across, the ceiling lost in shadows above, and in the center, suspended in a web of quantum field generators, was something that shouldn't exist. A portal, not metaphorical, an actual, stable wormhole, its event horizon shimmering with colors that hurt to look at directly. Through it, I could see stars. Not the stars visible from Titan, but different constellations. Somewhere else. Impossible, I whispered. That's what we thought too. A new voice spoke from behind me. I turned to see a woman in her 50s, silver hair pulled back severely, eyes sharp with intelligence. Until we had your algorithm. Dr. Cross, I'm Director Sarah Chen, head of Meridian's Advanced Research Division. And what you're looking at is the result of 6 months of work using your quantum encryption as the foundation for stabilized space-time manipulation. You built a wormhole using my communication algorithm. Not just a wormhole. A stable, controllable gateway to another part of the galaxy. She walked past me toward the portal, reverence in her movement. Your algorithm solved the decoherence problem. Quantum states remain entangled across the event horizon. We can send data, materials, even living matter through without degradation. I stared at the portal, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. Where does it lead? Proxima Centauri. Specifically to Proxima Centauri b, a planet in the habitable zone. We established a receiving station there 8 weeks ago. She turned back to me, and I saw something like regret in her expression. We needed to test it secretly, Adrian. If word got out before we were sure it was stable, before we had proof it worked, the implications would have caused chaos. Governments would fight for control. Corporations would wage wars. Humanity wasn't ready. So you stole from me, ruined my career, manipulated me across the solar system. We recruited you, Yuki said quietly. Everything that happened was designed to bring you here to show you this, and to offer you a choice. What choice? Director Chen gestured to the portal. Help us. The gateway is stable, but we're operating at the edge of our understanding. Your expertise in quantum systems is crucial. We need you to refine the algorithm, improve the stability, expand the bandwidth. We're not just talking about exploration anymore, Adrian. We're talking about colonization, humanity's first step to the stars. And if I refuse, then you go home. We return your algorithm, restore your position at Meridian with a promotion and a substantial bonus. Everything goes back to normal. She paused. Except you'll know. You'll know we're out here opening doors to the universe and you chose not to be part of it. I should have said no. Should have demanded they shut it down, reported them to colonial authority, done something to stop what was clearly dangerous experimentation with forces we barely understood. But I was looking at the portal, at the impossible made real, and all I could think was that this was built on my work. My algorithm had opened a door to the stars. I want to see it, I said. Proxima Centauri b, I want to go through. Director Chen smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. We have a transit scheduled for tomorrow morning. You'll be part of the first official expedition to another star system. How does that sound? It sounded insane, Terrifying, thrilling beyond measure. When do we leave? They gave me quarters on the research level, a suite that was absurdly luxurious compared to my apartment on Europa. Real wood furniture, actual windows looking out over Kraken Mare, and a bed that didn't fold into the wall. I spent the evening staring at the methane sea, trying to process everything that had happened. Yuki came to see me around midnight local time. She knocked quietly, waiting for me to open the door rather than barging in. She'd changed out of her uniform into casual clothes, and she looked more like the woman I'd met at the oxygen bar. "Can we talk?" she asked. I almost said no, but curiosity and something else, something I didn't want to examine too closely, made me step aside and let her in. She moved to the window, looking out at the same view I'd been studying. "I know you hate me," she said without preamble. "You have every right to. What I did was manipulative and cruel, even if it was for a greater purpose." "Was any of it real?" I asked. "The desperation, the excitement about the research, the promise of partnership." She was quiet for a long moment. "The excitement was real. Your algorithm is the most elegant piece of code I've ever seen. And the partnership offer was real too, just not in the way you thought." She turned to face me. "Adrian, I was sent to evaluate you, to see if you were just a brilliant cryptographer or someone who could handle the weight of what we were building. Director Chen needed to know if you could keep secrets, if you could work under pressure, if you had the imagination to see beyond your algorithms." "So the entire 6 months of silence, of letting me think I'd been robbed, that was a test? A cruel one. I argued against it, wanted to bring you in sooner." Her voice softened. "But Chen was right. We needed to know how you'd react to betrayal, to loss, to desperation. Because where we're going, where you're going tomorrow, those are the only things that will keep you alive." "What do you mean?" She moved closer, and I saw fear in her eyes for the first time since we'd met. "Proxima Centauri b isn't empty, Adrian. We discovered something there. Something that changes everything we thought we knew about the universe. And tomorrow, you're going to see it." I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, watching the stars through the window, knowing that by tomorrow evening I'd be looking at different stars. Stars no human had ever seen with their own eyes. The weight of it was crushing and exhilarating in equal measure. Morning came too quickly. I dressed in the expedition suit they'd provided, a sleek piece of technology that regulated temperature, monitored vitals, and had enough emergency protocols to keep someone alive in hard vacuum for up to 6 hours. Everything about this expedition was designed with survival in mind, which should have worried me more than it did. The expedition team assembled in the portal chamber at 0700 hours. 15 people total, including Yuki and Director Chen. Scientists, engineers, a medical team and 2 security officers, whose presence seemed ominous given we were supposedly visiting an uninhabited planet. "Final checks," Director Chen called out. Her voice echoed in the massive chamber. "We'll be on Proxima b for 72 hours. The portal remains open and monitored. If anything goes wrong, we can pull back immediately. Everyone ready?" A chorus of affirmatives. I stood near the back, watching the portal shimmer. Up close, it was even more unsettling. Reality bent around it, space twisting in ways that made my eyes water. I could see through to the other side now, a red landscape under a dim sun, alien and beautiful. "Adrian." Yuki appeared at my side. "Stay close to me once we're through. The gravity is 0.9 standard. Atmosphere is breathable, but the oxygen levels are lower. You'll feel lightheaded at first. Have you been through before?" 3 times. "It gets easier." She paused. "And it gets harder. You'll understand when you see it." Director Chen led the way. She stepped through the portal without hesitation, her form distorting for a moment before disappearing. One by one, the team followed. I watched them go, feeling my heart hammer against my ribs. Then it was my turn. I'd expected pain or cold or some kind of physical sensation. Instead, it was like stepping through a curtain of water. A moment of resistance, a sensation of being pulled apart and put back together, and then I was standing on another world. Proxima Centauri b. The first thing I noticed was the color. Everything was red. The sky, the ground, even the light itself had a crimson tint. The sun, Proxima Centauri, hung low on the horizon, a massive red dwarf that bathed the landscape in perpetual twilight. The planet was tidally locked, Yuki had explained during the briefing. One side always faced the sun, the other locked in eternal darkness. We'd emerged in the Terminator zone where day met night. The second thing I noticed was the structure. It rose from the red desert about half a kilometer away, impossible and ancient. Crystalline spires that caught the red light and transformed it into rainbows. Geometric patterns that hurt to look at, suggesting mathematics beyond human understanding. The structure was massive, easily a kilometer tall, and it hummed with energy I could feel in my bones. "What is that?" I whispered. "We don't know." Director Chen's voice carried awe and fear. "We found it during our second expedition. Analysis suggests it's been here for at least 10,000 years, possibly much longer, and it's still active." We approached slowly, the team spreading out in a defensive formation that made me increasingly nervous. The security officers had their weapons drawn, which seemed absurd. What were they going to shoot? As we got closer, I realized the structure wasn't just humming, it was singing. The same kind of quantum resonance I'd built into my algorithm, but infinitely more complex. Harmonics layered upon harmonics, creating a symphony of mathematics and physics that my conscious mind couldn't fully process, but my subconscious recognized as familiar. "Adrian!" Yuki grabbed my arm, pulling me to a stop. "Don't get too close. The quantum field it generates can affect neural patterns. We lost someone on the third expedition. He walked right up to it and his mind just unraveled." I stared at the structure, understanding dawning with sickening clarity. "My algorithm. It wasn't original, was it? I didn't invent quantum encryption. I discovered it." Director Chen turned to me, something like sympathy in her eyes. 3 years ago we detected unusual quantum fluctuations in Jupiter's magnetosphere, the same patterns that form the basis of your algorithm. We didn't understand what we were seeing until you published your work. You'd somehow intuited principles that this structure has been broadcasting for millennia. Broadcasting to who? We don't know, but 8 weeks ago something changed. The structure's activity increased exponentially. It's as if our opening the portal woke something up. She gestured to the crystalline spires. "We've detected similar quantum signatures coming from deep space. Responses to the structure's signal. Something out there knows we're here now." I wanted to run, wanted to dive back through the portal to Titan, to Europa, to anywhere that wasn't standing on an alien world in front of a structure built by a civilization that shouldn't exist. But my feet stayed rooted to the red sand, my mind racing through implications. "You brought me here because you need to understand the structure," I said slowly. "My algorithm is connected to it somehow. You think I can decipher what it's saying?" "Not just saying." Yuki's voice was tight with tension. "Teaching. The structure is a beacon, Adrian. A lighthouse broadcasting instructions for faster-than-light travel to anyone capable of receiving the signal. You received it, translated it into quantum encryption without even knowing what you were doing. Which means you're wired differently. Your mind processes quantum information in ways most humans can't. How many others? On Earth? Maybe a dozen people who've published work touching on similar principles. But you're the only one who built a complete functional system." Director Chen pulled up holographic displays from her wrist computer. "We've been monitoring you for 5 years, ever since your first paper caught our attention. Everything that's happened, the job at Meridian, the meeting with Yuki, bringing you here, it was all designed to see if you could do for this structure what you did for quantum encryption. Translate the incomprehensible into something we can use." The weight of manipulation crashed over me like a wave. 5 years. They'd been controlling my life for 5 years, pushing me toward this moment. Every choice I'd made, every path I'd taken, had been predetermined by people who saw me not as a person but as a tool. What if I refuse? My voice came out steadier than I felt. What if I walk back through that portal and never look back? Then humanity remains trapped in our solar system, while whatever built this structure continues broadcasting its invitation to the cosmos. Director Chen's expression hardened. And when something answers that invitation, when ships from a civilization millions of years ahead of us arrive, we'll have no way to defend ourselves, no way to negotiate, no way to even communicate. You're saying the choice is help you or doom humanity. I'm saying the choice is already made. The structure exists. The signal is being sent. We can't unring that bell. She moved closer, and I saw the desperation I'd once seen in Yuki's eyes. But we can prepare. We can learn. We can become something more than primitive primates playing with quantum fire we don't understand. And you're the key to that, Adrian. Like it or not. I turned back to the structure, feeling its song resonate through my body. The patterns were becoming clearer now, mathematical relationships that suggested not just communication, but invitation. A door opening to something vast and terrifying and beautiful beyond measure. How long do I have? The quantum signatures we detected are getting closer. Best estimate, 3 years before something arrives. Yuki stood beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her presence through the suit. 3 years to understand this structure, to learn its secrets, to prepare humanity for contact with whatever built it. 3 years. It seemed like forever and no time at all. We spent the next 3 days studying the structure. I interfaced my portable computer with the quantum field generators Director Chen's team had set up, analyzing the patterns the structure broadcast. It was like learning a new language, except this language was written in probability waves and quantum superposition. The structure wasn't just a beacon, it was a library, a database of information encoded in quantum states, waiting for someone with the right mental architecture to decode it. And apparently, I had that architecture. By the end of day 2, I'd translated the first complete message. It was a star map, showing not just our galaxy but thousands of others, connected by a network of portals identical to the one we'd built. The structure wasn't unique. It was one node in a vast network spanning the observable universe. How many structures are there? One of the scientists asked, staring at the holographic display of galaxies webbed together with quantum tunnels. Millions, I said, feeling the number in my bones. This network spans the entire universe, and it's old, billions of years old, built by a civilization that mastered quantum mechanics when Earth was still molten rock. Are they still out there? Yuki asked quietly. The builders? I didn't know. The structure's messages were instructions, navigational data, warnings about unstable regions of space. But there was nothing about the builders themselves. Nothing about their biology, their culture, their current location. It was as if they'd built this magnificent network and then vanished, leaving only their lighthouse beacons behind. On day 3, I found something that changed everything. It was buried deep in the quantum noise, a message that required specific entanglement patterns to decode, a message that felt personal in a way the others hadn't. And when I finally translated it, I understood why. The message was addressed to me. Not to humanity, not to future explorers. To Adrian Cross specifically. That's impossible, Director Chen said, staring at the translation. This structure predates human civilization by billions of years. Not impossible, inevitable. I felt dizzy, the implications threatening to overwhelm me. The structure doesn't exist in linear time the way we do. It's quantum, existing in superposition across all possible timelines. From its perspective, it knows every being who will ever interact with it, every question that will be asked, every discovery that will be made. The message was simple, once decoded. Just 3 words that rewrote everything I thought I knew about my life. You are ready. Ready for what? I didn't know. But the structure began changing after I translated that message. The quantum field intensified, new patterns emerging that I could feel pulling at something deep inside my mind. Memories that weren't mine. Knowledge I'd never learned. An understanding of quantum mechanics that went beyond human science. Adrian, what's happening to you? Yuki's voice seemed far away, though she was standing right beside me. Your neural patterns are spiking. You're processing quantum information at levels that should be impossible. I was changing. The structure wasn't just teaching me, it was rewriting me, transforming my brain into something that could truly comprehend the network. I could feel new neural pathways forming, synapses firing in patterns that shouldn't exist in human neurology, and I could see, not with my eyes but with something deeper. I could see the quantum field that connected everything, the probability waves that determined reality, the infinite possibilities collapsing into certainty with every passing moment. I could see the network stretching across the cosmos, millions of structures singing their song to the void, and I could see what was coming. 3 years. Director Chen had said we had 3 years, but she was wrong. The response to our signal was already here, had been here for centuries, waiting for someone to open the door, waiting for me. "We need to go," I said, my voice sounding strange in my own ears. "Now, back through the portal. There's something coming." "What kind of something?" Director Chen demanded, but she was already signaling the team to pack up. I pointed to the horizon, where the red sky was beginning to ripple. Not with clouds or weather, but with space itself folding, tearing, reality bending around something massive pushing through from elsewhere. "The builders," I whispered. "They're coming home." The structure's song reached a crescendo as a ship materialized above us. Calling it a ship was inadequate. It was a city, a world, a construct the size of Earth's moon, its surface covered in the same crystalline patterns as the structure, geometric impossibilities that hurt to perceive. And it was descending. We ran. The team scattered toward the portal, abandoning equipment and data in their panic. I should have run too, but I couldn't move. The ship's presence was overwhelming, pressing down on reality like a weight. I could feel minds inside it, consciousness so vast and alien that touching them felt like falling into an ocean with no bottom. "Adrian," Yuki grabbed me, physically dragging me toward the portal. "We have to go." But I was seeing something else now. The ship wasn't descending to destroy us or capture us. It was landing because the structure had called it, because I had called it by translating that final message, and the beings inside wanted to talk. A form materialized in front of me. Not physical, but not quite holographic either. Something in between, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. It had no face I could comprehend, no body that made sense to my human perception, but I understood it was looking at me. "So you have opened the door." The voice wasn't sound, but pure meaning, bypassing my ears and speaking directly to my consciousness. "After so long, someone has finally learned to listen." "What are you?" I managed to ask. "We are the architects. We built the network when the universe was young, seeded it with these structures, these teachers, hoping that one day other minds would arise and learn to see what we see, to join us in the great work." "What work?" "Preventing the end." The presence gestured, and suddenly I was seeing the universe from outside, from a perspective that shouldn't exist. I saw galaxies spinning, stars dying, the slow heat death approaching. "The universe is dying, Adrian Cross. Entropy cannot be stopped, only delayed. The network is our attempt to preserve consciousness, to create spaces between spaces where minds can survive after matter itself has decayed." I staggered under the weight of that knowledge. They weren't just builders. They were refugees from the eventual death of reality itself, creating lifeboats for consciousness. "Why me?" I asked. "Why show me this?" "Because you have the gift, the ability to perceive quantum truth without mathematical abstraction. There are billions of humans, but only a handful in each generation, born with minds that can interface directly with quantum reality." The presence moved closer. "We have been waiting for your species to produce someone like you, someone who could bridge the gap between human and architect, between meat and mathematics. You want to recruit me. We want to save you. Your species has perhaps 1,000 years before you destroy yourselves through war or ecological collapse. But if you join the network, if you learn to transcend physical form and exist as pure quantum information, you can survive for billions of years. You can help us complete the great work before the universe itself ends." It was everything I'd ever wanted. Unlimited knowledge, cosmic perspective, escape from the limitations of biology and mortality. But looking at Yuki's terrified face as she held on to me, feeling the weight of her very human concern, I realized it was also everything I'd lose. "What happens to the people I care about?" I asked. "They can join. Any consciousness can be translated into quantum information and preserved in the network, though few choose that path. Most beings prefer to live their natural span, even knowing it's finite. And if I refuse?" The presence was quiet for a moment. "Then we depart. Seal this structure. Wait another 1,000 years for your species to produce another with the gift. But Adrian, understand what you're refusing, not just immortality but purpose, the chance to ensure consciousness itself survives the heat death of the universe, to become something more than a biological accident on an insignificant world." I looked at the ship, at the structure, at the vast network of quantum pathways connecting the universe. Then I looked at Yuki, at Director Chen, at the frightened humans who'd followed me across the stars. We were small and insignificant and temporary, but we were real in a way that pure information could never be. I need time, I said, to think, to talk to my people, to understand what this really means. Time is the one thing the universe has in abundance. The presents began to fade. We will return in 10 of your years. If you choose to join us, we will teach you everything, show you wonders beyond human imagination. If you choose to remain biological, we will respect that choice and seek elsewhere. But know this, Adrian Cross, the door you opened cannot be closed. Other species will find these structures now that the network is active again. Some will be peaceful, others will not. Humanity must decide what it wants to be in the cosmos that's awakening around you. The presence vanished. The ship began to rise, space folding around it as it prepared to depart. Within seconds it was gone, leaving only the structure singing its eternal song to the stars. Yuki was still holding me, her grip tight enough to hurt. What just happened? First contact, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was, and a job offer. We returned through the portal to Titan. The debriefing took 3 days. Every second of our encounter analyzed and dissected by experts in xenobiology, physics, and psychology. None of them could agree on what it meant. Director Chen wanted to keep everything secret, continue studying the structure in isolation. Others argued for immediate disclosure, claiming humanity had a right to know we weren't alone. The debate raged in conference rooms while I sat in my quarters, staring at equations that suddenly made perfect sense. The architects had changed me. I could feel it every time I looked at quantum data, every time I interfaced with the portal's systems. I understood things now that should have required decades of study. I could see solutions to problems that had stumped physicists for centuries. I was becoming something between human and architect, a bridge that existed in both worlds. On the 4th day, Yuki came to see me. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. The Colonial Council has been informed. They're sending representatives to Titan. This is going to go public within the week. Good, I said. People should know. She sat on the edge of my bed, close, but not touching. Director Chen told me what the architects offered you, the chance to transcend, to become something more. You think I should take it? I think you should do what makes you happy. She finally looked at me, and I saw something raw in her expression. But I hope you don't. Because despite everything that's happened, despite all the manipulation and lies, I've come to care about you, the human you, not the quantum bridge version or the immortal consciousness. Just Adrian. I'd spent 4 days thinking about cosmic purpose and the heat death of the universe. But sitting there with Yuki, feeling the warmth of her presence, I realized something simple. Immortality meant nothing if you had no one to share it with. Knowledge was empty without someone to teach. The great work of the architects was noble, but it was also lonely beyond measure. I'm not going, I said. When they come back in 10 years, I'm telling them no. Relief flooded her features. Are you sure? This is literally the opportunity of a lifetime, of millions of lifetimes. I'm sure. I took her hand, feeling the simple physics of skin against skin. Because I've learned something the architects haven't. That being temporary isn't a flaw. It's what makes existence meaningful. Every moment matters precisely because there are only so many moments. She smiled, genuine and bright. That's very profound. Did the architects teach you that? No, you did. When you lied to me, manipulated me, put me through hell for 6 months. You showed me that even terrible experiences, even betrayal and loss are part of being human, and I don't want to give that up, not for all the quantum immortality in the universe. We sat in silence for a while, hands linked, watching Kraken Mare through the window. Then Yuki spoke quietly. I owe you an apology, a real one, not the corporate version. What I did was wrong. Even if it led to first contact, even if it served a greater purpose, I hurt you and I'm sorry. I forgive you, I said, and meant it, because you were right about one thing. This is a partnership. Not the kind you described at the oxygen bar, but something real. We're going to figure out this new universe together. The next week was chaos. The Colonial Council arrived, followed by representatives from Earth's major governments. The media descended on Titan like locusts, hungry for details about first contact and alien structures. I gave approximately 50 interviews, each one more exhausting than the last. But through it all, Yuki stayed by my side. We became the public faces of first contact, the humans who'd spoken to the architects, and lived to tell about it. They called us heroes, visionaries, the bridge between humanity and the cosmic network. What they didn't know was that we were just two people trying to figure out what came next. 3 months after our return from Proxima B, I finally wrote the letter. Not to Yuki, but to my former self. The man who'd lent his algorithm to a stranger at a bar, trusting that 3 days meant 3 days. I needed to tell him what I'd learned. The letter was simple. Just a few paragraphs acknowledging the pain of betrayal, the anger of being manipulated, the despair of thinking everything was lost, and then explaining that sometimes the worst things lead to the best outcomes, that being broken open is the only way to become something larger. I never sent it. There was no one to send it to. But writing it helped me understand that I'd forgiven not just Yuki but myself, for being naive, for trusting too easily, for thinking partnership could come without risk. Director Chen offered me a permanent position heading up the new quantum xenology department, studying the structure, preparing for the architect's return, and searching for other nodes in the network. The salary was obscene, the resources unlimited. I accepted on one condition. Yuki had to be my co-director. Equal authority, equal credit, equal responsibility. We moved into adjacent apartments on Titan's research level, spent our days translating alien mathematics, and our evenings watching methane seas under Saturn's rings. Slowly, carefully, we built something neither of us had expected. Not just partnership, but friendship, and maybe eventually something more. The structure on Proxima B continues singing its song. We visit it monthly now, each trip revealing new layers of information. The architects left entire databases encoded in quantum foam, waiting for minds capable of reading them. Information about other species, other civilizations, other nodes in the network. Humanity is waking up to a universe far stranger and more wondrous than we imagined. And I'm at the center of it, not because I'm special, but because I was desperate and lonely enough to trust a stranger with my life's work. Funny how these things work out. The letter I never sent taught me something important. That debt isn't always about money or algorithms or quantum encryption. Sometimes debt is about the experiences that shape us, the moments that break us open so light can get in. Yuki borrowed my algorithm, but what she really gave me was perspective, purpose, a reason to become more than I was. I consider that a fair trade. 10 years from now, the architects will return. They'll ask if I've reconsidered their offer. And I'll tell them no again, but thank you, because I've found something here worth more than immortality, worth more than cosmic knowledge or quantum transcendence. I've found other people worth being mortal with. That's my story. The tale of how lending something to a stranger for just a few days cost me everything and gave me the universe. How betrayal led to first contact. How the worst 6 months of my life became the foundation for humanity's greatest leap forward. Was it worth it? Standing here now watching Yuki work through calculations that will reshape human understanding of physics, I can honestly say yes. Every moment of pain, every night of despair, every bitter realization that I'd been manipulated, all worth it. Because the universe is vast and strange and full of wonders, and I get to explore it with someone who understood that sometimes you have to break a person down before you can build them into something capable of touching the stars. The loan was never really about the algorithm. It was about trust, about faith, about the willingness to be vulnerable in a universe that doesn't care whether we survive or thrive. Yuki knew that. The architects knew that. I was the only one who needed to learn it. So if someone asks you for a loan someday, if they promise it's just for a few days and you suspect they're lying, consider saying yes anyway, because you never know where that small act of faith might lead. Maybe nowhere. Maybe to heartbreak, or maybe to the stars. I look up at Saturn's rings through my apartment window and smile. Somewhere out there, the architects are watching, waiting to see what humanity does with this gift of cosmic knowledge, waiting to see if we become worthy of joining their network. We have 10 years to figure that out. 10 years to prepare, to grow, to become something more than territorial primates fighting over resources on a single world. It's not much time. But then again, 3 days wasn't much time either. And look how far we've come. The universe is singing, and finally we're learning to hear the song, all because I was foolish enough to trust a stranger with my life's work, all because Yuki was desperate enough to lie to someone who believed in partnership. Sometimes the worst decisions are the best ones in disguise. sometimes betrayal is just love that hasn't revealed its true face yet. And sometimes when someone asks you for something precious, the bravest thing you can do is hand it over and trust that the universe knows what it's doing, even when you have absolutely no reason to believe that's true. Especially then. That's the real secret the architects wanted humanity to learn, not quantum mechanics or faster-than-light travel or any of the technical miracles encoded in their structures. The real lesson is simpler and far harder to accept. That we have to trust each other. Trust across species lines, across vast distances of space and culture and biology. Trust even when, especially when, we have every reason not to. Because the alternative is dying alone in our corner of the cosmos, convinced that we're the only consciousness that matters, the only minds worth preserving. The architects built their network not just to escape entropy, but to prove that cooperation was possible on a universal scale. That being so different they could barely perceive each other, could still find common ground in the mathematics of existence. We're just starting to understand what that means. Yuki knocks on my door, pulling me from my thoughts. "Ready?" she asks. "The transport to Proxima B leaves in an hour. We've got new data to collect from the structure." "Ready," I say, and mean it. We walk together through Titan Station's corridors, past researchers and engineers, past the ordinary people building extraordinary things. My life now is unrecognizable from what it was 2 years ago. The isolation, the paranoia, the small existence in a cramped apartment on Europa, all swept away because I made one reckless decision to trust someone I shouldn't have trusted. Best decision I ever made. The portal waits for us in the depths of Titan Station, that impossible tear in space-time that my algorithm made possible. We step through together, Yuki's hand finding mine in the moment of quantum uncertainty, and emerge under red skies on an alien world. The structure sings its eternal song, and I sing back. Not with my voice, but with the quantum harmonics the architects taught me to perceive. A dialogue between human and ancient artificial intelligence, between matter and mathematics, between the temporary and the eternal. We have work to do, databases to translate, cosmic mysteries to unravel, a universe to explore. 10 years to prepare for the architect's return and humanity's choice. 10 years to prove we're worthy of the gift we've been given. It's not much time, but it's enough. Because we're not alone anymore. Not isolated on our birth world, convinced we're the universe's only children. We're part of something vast and ancient and ongoing. Part of a conversation that spans galaxies and eons. All because someone asked for a loan they never intended to return. And I was brave enough or foolish enough to say yes. The end and the beginning.